people. How are you all? Nice to see you. A few people waving. Loads of people joining us today. It's delighted to have you all with us. Hopefully you can all hear nicely. Hopefully all your microphones are muted to kick us off anyway. Tony, nice to see you. Good get. Scott, well, it's Jamie. It's Scott and Tony. Another Tony just arrived. Elliot, the Manchester City. Swanee's there. Jane, hello, Jane. Nice to see you again. Martin, it's been a little while, but it's nice to see you. Fiona, how are you? How's lockdown treating you? Okay. Rachel, welcome. Mark, welcome. There's lots of people joining us. So to all those people, Simon, oh, look, the beautiful couple are there. Hello, Leonards. How are you? Loads of people from all over the world joining us today, I'm delighted to say. So if you're joining me from the UK or Europe, good afternoon to you. If you're joining me from North America, a very good morning to you. Love you. Rob Chester, an international traveling man who's probably pretty grounded at the moment, is there, but a fantastic guy. Pippa Mole's just joined us. Hello, Pippa. Nice to see you. There's going to be more people than I can cope with on my screen. I think we have roughly 100 people on today, guys. So Mike Pennington's arrived. Always good to see you, Mike. So forgive me if I sometimes have to switch between screens. Lots of people haven't got their Go on, Neil Russell. You're a good-looking guy. Pop your camera on. Loads of people haven't got their cameras on yet. If you put the camera on, it's always nice because I just get to see who I'm talking to, and it's so much better. Loads and loads of people coming on there. So thank you very much indeed for that. I hope you're going to enjoy it. Interestingly, and I'll kick off because it is sort of 2:00. For those people who've been joining me for the last few weeks in our bit of positive lockdown stuff, thank you. And thank you for sticking with it. And thank you for joining me again. We've talked about all sorts of different things over the last few weeks, and it's been a pleasure to do that, to talk about different elements of communication. I know quite a few people, because I can see faces and see names of people from all over the world I've worked with. To all our friends in Germany, Guten Tag. There's a couple there. I saw one off a little bit earlier in there somewhere. So if you're wherever you are in the world, thank you. We've talked about all sorts of different elements of communication. And what I was going to say is some people know me, some people I've had the pleasure of working with, and quite a few people have got to know me over the last few weeks. And one or two people are joining me for the very first time. So I'm delighted with that. If you're not quite sure who I am, basically, John Hammond, shy person in a noisy body, who spent most of my life standing on stage or being in front of audiences somewhere, which is, it's been a lovely, lovely way to spend my life. And all I do on these sessions is try and share one or two of the things I've learnt over the years to try and perhaps help you in whichever way. Now, a lot of people I work with, and I see from a lot of different faces on there, Dylan's just woken up, I can tell. A lot of people sort of from the corporate world, a lot of work I do in the corporate world, but hopefully the stuff we talk about is good life stuff, is how we connect and communicate, how we make the best. And today, telling stories, business storytelling, we can all do it. And I'll talk more about that and how we do it and the process of doing it and why we do it, which is a very interesting side to cover too. But also a little later, I'll be talking about conquering nerves. After the session last week, I got a couple of emails from people saying, oh, it's okay for you, John. You can walk up in front of a few thousand people and feel very comfortable. How do you manage to conquer your nerves to do that? Do you get nervous? Is a question I get asked. And the answer is yes, as we all do. It's natural. But it's how we handle the nerves and how we get into the habit of handling the nerves. I'm going to share a bit of a little later on. And also, if anybody sometimes, and we talked about it before, so I won't cover it today, but it's a word I made up called pedestalization, where we put situations, people on a pedestal and we push ourselves down. It's always a negative space to be in. So I'm going to be talking about how to own any room. So hopefully after today's session, you can go to any room, anywhere in the world and feel totally comfortable about being there. Doesn't matter who's in the room, doesn't matter where the room is, doesn't matter if you've never, ever been in the room before. It's a technique. And I'll share the story behind the technique and the technique as well. So I'm excited to be here. I was having a lovely chat with a friend of mine who used to be in the radio world, because my world was radio, then TV, and all sorts of communication stuff from that. A friend of mine who's been in that world, and we were chatting yesterday, and we were saying, I wonder how things are going to change. And I said, I think they're going to change in that for the new world, community and collaboration will be more important, not the isolation of being individuals. And I know for many years we've lived in a competitive world, haven't we? We've worked this competitive world where you're always trying to get the next, trying to get the next, trying to get the next. Can you, and I know there's lots of leaders on the call as well, be more holistic about that? Let's take people with us on that journey. So let's share a little bit today, and I'm excited to do it and look at some of the skills that are rather useful. Now, I just realized I've been in that little corner at the top of your screen for the last few minutes, but I'll hopefully you can always see, you can see me in there somewhere. In the middle. Am I in the middle of your screen now, guys? I'll apologize at this stage. Thank you, Swanee. You can turn your microphone off again now. That's Dave Swanton, that head in the middle of the screen at the moment, because when you talk, Dave, you realize you are the one we're looking at. Anyway, yeah, let's crack on. I'm going to share the screen anyway and talk about one or two different things. The first one is that your microphone's on again, Mr. Swanton. You need to turn it off. Right. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. Some people might have got this. Give us a wave if you've already got the book. Start with Why by Simon Sinek. If you haven't, thank you, Tony. If you haven't got the book, it's one of those, but Olaf's got it. Well done. If you haven't got the book, it's one I really recommend. One of the best books in my bookcase. Although I looked around yesterday and realized I've lent it to someone. Start with Why by Simon Sinek. If you're in the leadership space, have a look on YouTube at Simon Sinek's piece about the snowflake generation. It's fascinating, but he's a really good guy. The reason I put that book up and say, right, this is why I recommend it, is that I think it's the best place always to start. Sometimes we leap in and we go for it and we get into the process and we get carried away with doing it, rather than actually time out, stop. Why are we doing it? So if I may, in the past few weeks, it's been rather nice because I've been able to share one or two little, Martha in Germany, hello, nice to see you, share one or two little things with you by polling. And if I may, I'm going to give a little poll to start the day off. Okay, and the first poll is, what do you think about storytelling in business? Hopefully you can all see that. Please feel free to click on that. Can you all read it? Give me a thumbs up. Lovely. Thanks, Fiona. Fiona's on it like a rocket, saying it. Okay. Let me know which of those you think is most appropriate for you. Okay. A few more people join us on that. Okay, anybody else fancy joining us on that? Right. Let me end the polling and reveal what you put. Any guesses about it? 0% said storytelling is for kids, which is great because a lot of people think storytelling is once upon a time, and that makes it sound very childish and everything else. 8%, in fact, let me share the results with you, and you should be able to see that, and Fiona will give me a little thumbs up if it comes up on the screen. Lovely. I don't consider myself a storyteller. A lot of people say that to me. John, I'm not a storyteller. And I say, actually, we're all storytellers. It's a skill we all possess because that's how we communicate as human beings. We talk sort of about what we've done, how we've done it, where we've done it, whatever. But that is all in stories, which we'll talk about in a second. Great to see that 48% think I wish I was better at it. I think the same thing. I want to be better. I've shared over the last few weeks. I want to improve every day in some way, shape or form. It's just my way of wanting to learn. And I think sort of, hopefully we can share some stories today. I quite like telling stories. That's lovely. I love using stories. I'm great to hear that. And stories really help me to make an impact. So we got some converted and some to convert. The one thing I would say is that on this, there we are. That should have gone from your screen now. Sorry, you got me again. on this call, there are lots of experts from around the world. So I'm not professing to be the expert and do as I say, don't believe in that at all. And there's lots of different people with lots of experience on the call with us from around the world. And if you want to chip in, by all means, in the chat box on the right-hand side, just pop a thought up or a question or anything you like. I'll monitor that at the same time so we can talk to as many people as we possibly can and answer as many questions as we possibly can. So are you ready to rock and roll, guys? Yes, that's it. Give me jazz hands. Yeah. And then how many people did jazz hands before we started doing all this online stuff? Yeah, it's the new it's the new world. By the way, I'd like to say hello to everybody from Search Laboratory as well, because we've got lots of people on the call. Thank you, Gwilym. Lots of people from Search Laboratory who've joined us today. So thank you very much. Lots of people from Manchester City and companies all over the world. So that's absolutely great. So let me share this screen with you and ask the question, why should I become a great storyteller? Well, it is really, really important to us, isn't it? And the poll was about getting a feel for that. I don't normally, I'm going to break a rule. When I'm presenting, I never read from a screen for two reasons. And if anybody reads from a screen, there's nothing worse than someone standing in front of a PowerPoint saying, let me read this all to you. Has that happened to anybody? Does it ring a bell that people stand in front of a PowerPoint screen? Would you like me to have 3 quick questions to cure that if any of your team talk to you from our screen? Question number 1, and I may have shared this with you a couple of weeks ago, but question number 1, when you were little, did anybody ever read to you? Question number 2, what time of day? Question number 3, what happened next? And that tends to cure them a little bit, because what happened to us? We fell asleep. And people fall asleep if people read to you. However, I'm going to break that rule just to read this quote to you. We are, as a species, addicted to story. Even when the body goes to sleep, the mind stays up all night telling itself stories. Am I the only person over the last few weeks of lockdown that gets up in the middle of the night, makes a cup of tea and has a think? Yeah, there's a lot going on. And our minds sort of keep on buzzing all the time. But so does any audience that you're appearing in front of, doesn't it? Their minds are buzzing all the time. And we're looking for stories all the time. And why do we look for stories? Well, it's our subconscious mind. And I find this fascinating. So why do stories really work for you? You probably know this. Yeah, it's common sense, but it's interesting. Why do they work? Well, stories create patterns in the brain to help us understand life. That's how we understand our life. We look around for things all the time. Our subconscious mind is on the lookout for stuff. And then we go into our computer of our brain and think, why do I recognize that shape or pattern? Why do I recognize that thing? Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's a bit weird because sometimes, well, for instance, the example I normally give is we never call our children after someone we hated at school. It's irrational, but we don't. Because our mind is saying, oh, they're going to be like that. I can't possibly do that to my beautiful little child. Yeah. So this irrational side of our brain kicks in on that. But think about the patterns we're creating. If we are creating patterns in people's brains, what are the patterns we're going to create? And I want to share with you a couple of thoughts, techniques of how to maybe really do that with the best impact as possible. How does it do it? Well, the brain's using those to orally and visually compute stuff. So not only, so you can close your eyes and listen to something and instantly you'll get a picture. I want to try an experiment, if that's all right, in a second too. Everybody up for that? I know it's early in the morning, Claire, but you know, we'll come up with a little bit of fun on that. So one other thing about why stories really work, and I love that, 22 times more likely to remember a fact if it's wrapped up in a story. Stunning that, isn't it? And I've asked this question, and I ask it on a regular basis. How many bullet points have you seen in your life? And if you say thousands, John, I then say, tell me one then. And most people go, I've seen thousands. I can't remember any of them. But if someone tells you a story, what do? We tell other stories. There's a chap I had the pleasure of working with called Seth Godin. Some of you might come across Seth Godin, written some great books. And he's fascinating. He's got a daily blog and he sends out. I don't get time to read the daily blog, but I try and catch up with it. And Seth Godin had something called Purple Cow. Anybody read the book Purple Cow? Little wave. If you haven't, another book for your lockdown book library. Purple Cow. Imagine we're all on a train journey, right? We're coming from, I don't know, to Geneva to Berlin or wherever it may be. And so we're sitting on this train journey and we look out the window. And Olaf, I'm going to pinch you as Olaf's in Hamburg at the moment. So Olaf, yeah, right. We're on this journey. I'm going to unmute you for a second, if I may. Okay. Welcome along. We're on this train journey and I say, Olaf, look at all those black and white Frisian cows in that field, right? And you say, oh, lovely, isn't that nice? Oh, look, there's a little calf over there, all right? After about half an hour, we've seen enough black and white Frisian cows to last a lifetime. But then we see a purple cow. Olaf, what do you say to me? Did you see that purple cow?
Did you see that purple cow?
Exactly. You say, did you see that purple cow? And I say, yeah, I saw a purple cow. Thanks, Olaf. That was very good. That's all I needed. Did I see the purple cow? Yeah, I saw the purple cow. Then we talk about it for the next hour of the journey. But what's more, we then go home and we say to our friends and family, you'll never guess what I saw last night. I saw the purple cow. That's the power of stories and transmitting stories. Anybody see the meteorites last night? The shower of meteorites? Hey, it's good, wasn't it, Tony? Great. I saw about 3, yeah. As I was enjoying, for anybody who's here last week, the caramel vodka, which was very pleasant. And I'm not encouraging people to drink, but if you've not tried caramel vodka, it's a whole new world. Anyway, so there was me looking at the sky. I hadn't fallen over on my back. I was sitting there looking at, and these meteorites were going over. And I thought, oh, how many conversations will I have about the meteorites tomorrow? Stories. We all do it, and we all be really, really good at it. Now, for anybody who works in the story world, you'll probably recognize that straight away. This is the classic story arc of a normal story. Okay. Now, I'm going to try and do something, if I may. I'm going to try and play something which I hope you will be able to hear. I don't know whether you can see that, but I'm hoping you'll be able to hear it. And if I go that, can you hear that now, guys? No? Can you see the picture? Okay. If I went dun, 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 I know I can't turn the flipping thing off. Go away. I could hear it really loud, but for some reason it's not going through Zoom. But if you hear that dun, 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 what do you think of? A great big rubber fish. And it's instant, and we all thought about it at the same time. That's the power of something. Instantly, you recall it. Now, the reason I mentioned Jaws, it is the classic story arc. Yeah, opening scene, the scene set, that nice little place by the sea with the sheriff and everybody else. And then suddenly what happens? Someone's out there, young girl, yeah, having a great time. Dun, 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 and the Jaws comes along. So that's the first one. Then it goes into a series of crises, doesn't it? Which are getting worse and worse and worse. The tension is building, and you know something's going to happen. And John Williams' great score builds that tension underneath as well. For the business meeting, it's very difficult to have that tension music underneath because everybody thinks, what the heck's going on? However, the tension builds, reaches the climax, the denouement, as they would say, and then there's a resolution. And if you look at any story you've either read or seen on screen, that tends to be the pattern it goes through. But I look at that from a business point of view, because that's very good. If you started by saying, hey guys, we're on the crisis with our business, it's only going to get worse, we're going to have to sack people, your audience are going to be wrist slashing. Yeah? We want to take them on a different sort of journey. So I've converted that to this, which is my story arc, which is slightly different, but hopefully it makes sense in your business world. So there's several stages to the story arc, which I'm going to go through in a second. So don't worry, don't need to write them down straight away because they're coming up in a second or two. But the grab, the wow, the context, the message, the story, and the wrap. So in the business world, I want to take people on that journey with me and make sure they're enjoying it as they go through. Now, in my day-to-day work, and I'll just stop sharing for a second. Okay. In my day-to-day work, yeah, I use these clever little cards that I've had done, which have got that on there. And for anybody, I can see quite a few people I've worked with down the years there, has yours arrived yet, Claire? No, not yet. It's stuck somewhere in the post to America. Anyway, that, Olaf will recognize that, but that is my little virtuous circle for presentation. Let me talk you through it, and I'll share my screen so you can see it in a bit bigger fashion. So, the presentation virtuous circle starts with the grab, then the wow, then the context, then the message, then the story, then the wrap. Let me put this into some sort of context for you. The grab is grabbing people's attention at the start of... Now, no, I'm going to say story in the middle of this, but it's all the story journey, if you like. The grab is when you want to get their attention at the start of something. So before you grab them, you have to understand who your audience are. My first principle is always be the audience. Really get to know who your audience are. Because there's no point coming in and talking about something which doesn't have any relevance to that audience. It's not going to grab their attention. Might be vaguely interesting for a couple of seconds, but then they'll drift off in their own little world. So the grab has got to be relevant to the audience. So what are examples of grabs? Please put your hand up if you like stories. That's a grab. I would call that a physical grab. So if I'm working in front of a large audience, I will get some sort of physical connectivity with a grab. I'll ask them a question that might need a show of hands. It might need noise. It might be applause, whatever. That's a physical grab to get them on your side in the first place. If it's a one-to-one meeting, it could be different sorts of grabs. So another sort of grab is the rhetorical question. Have you ever wondered about how many people can go on a Zoom call at once? Rhetorical question. Yeah. I've discovered it's 100 on this call, which were there, but next week I might have to go to a different format to do up to 1,000. That could be fun, with less pictures, so it'll be a one-way, but we'll talk about that later. So that could be a grab. The rhetorical grab, you ask a question about it. The other grab, which is my favorite grab, is using the word imagine. Because imagine is an instruction as well as an invitation. So you can say, imagine a world. Imagine the world after lockdown. You get people's attention very quickly on that. Imagine what we as an organization will do after lockdown. So by saying imagine, you're giving that instruction, so they start imagining. You're triggering their brain to start imagining. So there's a couple of examples of grabs. There's lots more, but in our short time together, we don't have time to talk over all of them, but there are loads of different ones. My next thing is the wow, which is, and we talked about it briefly if you were with us on the call last week, two sorts of people that you're probably trying to persuade and influence. Creative people. Yeah, give them a nice creative wow idea, picture or whatever it may be, and they think, oh yeah, and they spur off that. And then you get the process type people, not being derogatory, but we all work with some people who much prefer numbers. And they'll say to me, John, I want the numbers. But as long as the numbers are well transmitted. So make a wow for both of them that could include both of them. For instance, let me give you a little wow as an example. Do you know what percentage of people who work from home feel that their stress level is lower? Any idea? It's 82%. Now, that was pre-lockdown. If you've got kids at home, I don't think your stress level will be 82% lower than everybody else. I think you'll be screaming and kicking the doors down by now. But it's one of those wow things. And I'm sorry, I've just stuck that into your brain. So you may well share that in the conversation. Do you realize before lockdown, 82% of people said that they sort of felt far less stressed when they were working from home? We're all stressed when we work from home. Yeah. For different reasons now. Nikki, hello. Matthew, hello. I'm just turning pages and waving to people as I go just to make sure everybody's happy on that. So the wow, how do you wow them? Can you give them a fact or figure that, you know, when something happens and you think, wow, and they want to talk about it to someone else? Anybody see Elton John singing the other night in that concert? Yeah, one or two people. Untitled Chapter. Sadly, he couldn't get his S's out. Now, I've talked about that to several people because it was a wow to me. I love Elton John's work, but it was Untitled Chapter. And I'm thinking, that's a bit weird. If you haven't seen it on YouTube, watch it. It's interesting. So there's the wow. What next? The message. Are you clear what your message is? And I say this to people, and I say when they're putting some sort of presentation or conversation or what a meeting, whatever, one of the questions that often gets missed out is, what's the perfect outcome? We start the meeting and we go for it, but how often do we say, what actually is the perfect outcome for this? What outcome do I want? And the way I phrase it is, what do I want my audience to walk away thinking and doing? And how long do I want them to think and do it for? Which is, if anybody has regular meetings and they give their teams loads and loads of information, I know in a lot of organizations, you'll have the weekly briefing or the huddle or whatever it may be, and people will turn up and the first thing to do is, here's the numbers, guys. Is anybody ever excited by it? Not really. Unless there's a direct correlation to it. We've all done it, haven't we? And we all do it in regular meeting. Oh, here's all the numbers, right? And then they have regular things like, oh, let's do a celebration. And by the way, anybody got any problems? And then everybody goes away again. And do they, A, look forward to those meetings, or B, remember anything about them? So is the meeting useful for people? So if you want to write this down, what will your audience walk away thinking and doing, and how long will they think and do it for, is a bit of a gospel for me, because then people actually do think about it a lot more. So the message itself, 2 or 3 things that you want to really get across. What are the 2 or 3 things that would be really important for them to take away with them? I've talked previously about the Eberhausing forgetting curve. We forget 58% of what we hear within 20 minutes of hearing it. So we're on an upward challenge to try and make sure we get it there before their brains have gone on to something else. And I want to cover that in a second or two. So I don't know if you've heard of this, the power of 3. We heard the power of 3 before. Everyone is in kind of my world, the power of 3. Chris remembers that. 3 things fit in the brain really well. Yeah, 3 things are easy for everybody's brain to hang on to, especially if there's stories with them. If I came to you and said, hey, I've got 4.5 things for you, Jane, you'd think, what? Yeah, 4.5 things? I can't remember 4.5 things. Or I've got a list of 9 things I want to talk to you about today. Any boss that walks out and says that, I'm sure, Martin, in your experience, that no boss has walked out and said, I've got 15 things for you to remember today. Yeah, we all know it wouldn't happen, wouldn't be successful. So always remember the power of 3. And if you want to chase that up and look more, Martin Luther King's I Had a Dream speech is all in 3s. If you analyze it, take it apart, look at it, watch it on YouTube, read the script, it's all in 3s. Very, very cleverly done. But that's for another time. Now, here we come to the story bit of it. So we know the 3 things we want to get across. Now we need to illustrate them. And perhaps instead of saying a story, because people think once upon a time, think of it examples. And great stories or examples paint pictures in people's minds. If you don't paint pictures in people's minds, as we said before, they don't remember it. They move on. And the best stories are pictures in our brains that we see ourselves in. So if you're telling a story about something, it has to be resonating. It'll have to go in their brains and think, oh yeah, I see myself in that. That's happened to me too, right? I put some money down for Captain Tom. I think the country was captivated by Captain Tom, wasn't it? Why? Because we could all see that all resonated with us. Why did it resonate with us? Because it was something that we could see our relatives or have connection with. It was a real person that we connected with. Yeah, 27 or is it 28 million pounds later? I just think that's a lovely story, but it has something in common with all of us. We could see ourselves supporting him. There was another one on social media yesterday about a lovely young lady in a care home, and she's found, I don't know if you've seen it, do you, Tony? One of that lovely thing about the guy in a care home, and his wife died, but he slept with her picture every night. So she made him, or she had made for him, a cushion with his wife's picture on it, which is absolutely lovely. Why does that chime with us? Because that's human. We can react to that, and we react with the emotion of it as well. As we say before, you can tell people numbers till the cows come home, they remember nothing. Wrap them up in something slightly emotional or a good story, they'll remember it for a long time. Then on this little presentation virtuous circle, the wrap, right? The wrap is closing the end of the circle. So if you started with a rhetorical question saying, do you realize what we're going to do after lockdown as an organization? The wrap is, so that's what we're going to do after lockdown. You've closed the circle in people's minds. It means they can take that whole thing with them away and get it. Does that make sense? Yeah, everybody any questions? Let me just check the if I stop the share, I can check that. You never usually wake up in the middle of the night with good thoughts, though. Rob said the chimp paradox. I'm going to talk about the chimp paradox in a second or two. Hopefully, though, we do wake up in the night sometimes with good dreams rather than negative stuff. I hope. So, I'm going to... Oh, is everybody up for a bit of an experiment here? Yeah? Is that a nod? Yeah? Yeah. Lots of people who haven't got their cameras on, and lots of people... Hello, Chris Wolford. Nice to see you. Sorry, took you by surprise then. Doesn't matter if you've got your cameras on or not. Don't laugh at him, Dan. Doesn't matter if you've got the cameras on or not. It's nice to see you, but I want to try a little experiment, if I may, which is another poll, and it's an off-the-cuff little poll, but we've talked about it for a little while. This poll is about what resonated in the stuff we've talked about so far, okay? So in the stuff we've talked about so far in our little session in the last half hour, what resonated most for you? That's great, guys. Thank you. Lots of people voting on that. That's really interesting. I know you can't see it at the moment. I'll share with it in just a second or two. Okay. Another 30 seconds or so. People are still... The votes are coming in. I think that'll do. We'll end it then, because it's only just a... let me share the results with you. Just a thought. Can you see that? The grab. Really powerful, the grab. I know it's simplistic, but if you can grab people's attentions at the start, they'll go with you on the journey. Let me give you another example of where the grab works. And I think I shared this last week, but if someone goes for a job, the traditional thing is to say, this is what I've done. This is how I've done it. This is where I've done it. All right? Does that grab their attention? But if someone comes in, and I know loads of us have been on interview panels and employed people, if someone came in and say, I understand you've got a problem with X, and my experience doing this and the success we had at Y could solve that problem for you, they go straight to the top of your list, promise you, because you grabbed them with something for them. Yeah. So, thank you for that. I will now share my screen again. Okay. Habitude. I've introduced it. This is, everybody asks me for a little pill that'll make life really easy. Some makes me sound like a pusher. Not. But an idea of something to make life easier and quick. And this is it, as far as I'm concerned. Habitude. It's a combination of habits and attitude that if we can combine and make work for us, then we just keep doing it. Now, I know loads of you already do that, no doubt. You have great habits, you have great attitude, but how do we keep on resonating? How do we keep on making sure we are the best we can possibly be? Now, I want to talk about subconscious mind in a second or two. And our subconscious mind is this sort of, and the chimp paradox, which Rob mentioned a little earlier. I don't know if we've seen that. Steve Peters, anybody read the chimp paradox? Quite a few nods, yeah. Chimp paradox divides the brain up into different areas. I happen to have a little picture of a brain here, but basically, and I won't try and say where it is, but the limbic system in the middle is your chimp, yeah? The frontal lobe there, yeah, is your human, and the parietal lobe at the top is your computer. That's how Steve Peters divides it up. And when we see something for the first time, we look at it and we think, oh, what do I know about that? So we go through all these images and all these patterns in our head to say, how does that resonate with something I've done in the past? Which is why you see someone walking down the road, hi, how are you? Have you ever done that? And it's the wrong person. But something about them remind you exactly of someone else. Dead embarrassing. But, you know, so if you can do that, that's what's happening within your head. The computer, you go through straight away. The logical side of you, the human, would then do something about that and say, right, that's fine, I'll move on, or whatever. So if we go into a strange room or an influential room of strangers, yeah, we should just walk in and say, I've come here, boss, with all these great plans, and they're going to be really good for the company. But the other part, to use Steve Peters' analogy, the chimp, which is our emotional side, gets involved and clamps down on us. And that's the bit that kicks in first, because it's 10 times stronger than anything else. So our subconscious emotion is stronger than anything else. And that's what we go to first. Now, you might know it, the limbic system, which covers sleep and sex. You'll be pleased to hear I'm not going to talk about either of those on this program. But fight and flight are the two things you probably recognize instantly. Well, that's our emotional side of our brain kicking in to protect us, saying, oh, there's danger over there. You either need to run away or you need to fight it. When I'm coaching for presentations and helping people with presentations, the example I use is when we were in the caves, right? We didn't have books and things to communicate things, so we told stories around the campfire. But when we're in the caves and we'd come out and the big, hairy, woolly mammoth is coming over the horizon, we'd do one or two things, yeah? We'd either get ready to fight it or we'd run into our cave as fast as we can. The big, hairy, woolly mammoth has been replaced by your annual meeting with the boss, where you have to do a presentation to the boss and it's scary. That's exactly what your brain's doing, because it's just, they call it the lizard brain. You may have come across that in some of the writings. The lizard brain is still the same as it was when we came out of the swamp. Hasn't changed. There to do the same purpose. There to protect us. The trouble is, when we want to connect and communicate to people, it tends to get in our way. And we allow it to get in our way without even realizing we're doing it. Do you recognize that, guys? We allow that strange part of our brain to get in the way. And what does that lead on? That leads into nerves. Now, I know there's loads of people I've spoken to down the years who don't have a problem about walking out in front of an audience, big audience, small audience, whatever. Fine, great. Bet they still get nervous underneath, because that's the frisson you need to do a good job, I think. But lots of people think, oh, it's the worst thing you could ask them to do. Yeah, it's like in the telly world, or I'll talk about something. I used to do ice hockey announcing. You'd walk up to someone in an audience in Manchester Arena, 16,000 people there, and you'd walk up with a camera and a microphone, and you'd look at their eyes, and you could very quickly tell whether they were going to work and talk to you, or it's the worst thing they could possibly do. And a lot of people, you think, oh, I'll move away from that. But do you recognize that in your lives as well? The way we put nerves in the way of getting us to where we want to be. We find reasons to do it. All sorts of things this subconscious brain does as well. The subconscious brain kicks in the what ifs. Oh, you don't want to do that. What if they think you're stupid? What if you look daft? What if you make a mistake? What if you don't know all the information they've asked me to know everything about? Well, realistically, you can't remember everything. But we put those barriers in the way to stop us being the best we possibly can. Does that kind of resonate? Do you recognize it in yourselves? What can we do about it? That's the more important thing. So I want to talk about this, dealing with the subconscious mind. How do we deal with it? Well, a couple of suggestions. Proactive, reactive. All right? So proactively, what can we do about it? Or well, let me change that slightly. Traditionally, standard, we react to stuff. So rather than thinking about what our subconscious mind is doing, we'll think, oh, that's happened. I'll deal with it. Rather than, why am I feeling like this? So if you've got a big important meeting with maybe a new client or someone that's really important to you, before you walk through the door, what's your subconscious brain telling you? You don't want to be here. Oh, this could be scary. Oh, and we loop our left-leaning brain loops into negatives if we're not careful too. Yeah. Has anybody had a situation? Let me think of an example where it's raining, and you look outside. It's raining. Where's your next thought? Oh, last time I went out in the rain, I wrecked a pair of shoes. Oh, I can't find my brolly's gone. Oh, what happens if I'm late for the meeting today because the bus is late? You know, all that stuff. No one else has been involved with that. We've just done it ourselves. And do you recognize it in yourself too, that those negative loops that we let happen to us without stopping and taking control of them? And that's my suggestion, or one of my suggestions today is, can we take a bit more control? Can we do something about it? Yeah. Can you say, right, I'm going to be conscious of this? And the other thing about the subconscious mind, the subconscious mind doesn't have a time scale, right? It's not really interested in time scale. So the conscious brain, the human side, will say, oh, I need to cut down on the drinking. And the subconscious mind will say, oh, fair enough. And then instantly forget it and move on. Which is why we have to create habits, because the only way the subconscious mind learns is by repetition and keep on doing things over and over again. One of the techniques I use for that, and by all means, I would love to send you one of these, which is a little pad. Can you see? Let me put full. I'm on full screen, I think. Can you see that, guys? Some of you may have these pads. I use those just as an aide-memoire to help my subconscious mind do more stuff. And it's a very simple technique. What would the best with a gap in the world do now? Right? And it's a post-it note. So therefore, I can stick it wherever, around the kitchen or wherever around the house, and then have a look at it and remind me. And it's an aide-memoire to my subconscious mind. So one of the examples of this, remember the old days when we used to go out to work, right? And we'd have a tough day at work. And we'd come home and you'd be going, oh, that's me. Oh, you know, when you're really tense, yeah? And you get out the car and the tension continues into the house. Now, if anybody's a cat lover, I'm not suggesting you kick the cat, but that's just an expression, all right? People feel like, oh, yeah? One of the little suggestions that I've had quite a bit of success with is saying to people, okay, just put that in your car. What would the best mum? What would the best dad? What would the best husband, partner, spouse do next? And then when you get out of the car, when eventually lockdown finishes, you look at that before you walk into the house, and it's telling your subconscious brain, actually, the best partner in the world will walk in a different mood to the one when you arrived home in your car. And it works, and it's effective. So try it, by all means. Let me know how you got on with it. But it also works if you are trying to go and tell stories to your boss, right? I don't mean stories in terms of, I haven't done this, boss, but, you know, positive stuff, communicating. Yeah. What would the best person in the world do now? What would the best presenter in the world do now? Would they be worried about the little stuff? No. They'd be the big. What would the best consultant in the world do now? What would the best speaker in the world do now? It just helps you focus in the moment, to help that subconscious brain from putting all those barriers up to stop you moving on. Now, I promised last week to share a story that we didn't get time for. So I'm going to share that story now. And it's the story behind how I got to a particular technique. Now, for my American viewers, you may recognize this guy. I'm looking to see if everybody's nodding away. Anybody fancy taking a bit of a punt and tell me who it is?
Tom Brady.
Say again?
Tom Brady?
Not Tom Brady. No. Anybody else having a bit of a guess?
San Marino.
No. I'm liking the guesses, though.
Tom Brady. No. Tom Brady.
No.
Troy Aikman.
No. Anybody else want to have a pot? Shall I give you a clue? Houston Oilers. No. Hang on, if someone put something in the chat. Let me just check in the chat. Oh, Claire, right, Claire, fine. That's no problem. Tony Webster said, no such thing as a bad weather and rain, just a bad outfit. Fair enough. Okay. Where can you buy the Post-it notes from? I actually, to me privately, I probably shouldn't have read that out, but I'll send you one if you like. I had a load printed because I use them for my coaching. And they're really, really useful. So the story here, this chap, his name is Bo Eason. And he was out with the Houston Oilers. He was a safety for the Houston Oilers. He wrecked his body, basically, playing American football. And he wrote a play called Runt of the Litter. Yeah, I had pleasure of spending some time with him in San Francisco. Fascinating guy. And he wrote this play called Run to the Litter about his experiences within the NFL. And it's only a short play, but that's a picture, a still from it. And he would inject himself to be able to go out and play. Yeah. It was all about the kind of expectations and the pressure and everything else. But so he wrote the play. And then they said, hey, Bo, would you come and do it off Broadway? And he thought, ooh, that is so far different to my normal world that they're asking me, a footballer, to go into a theatre in Broadway and be totally comfortable. And he said, what I did, he said, I prowled like a cat.
Hey, Noel.
Say again?
You start at 9 today?
Hello? Who's that? Is that Mariam? Hello, Mariam?
Yes, sorry.
Hi. I don't know if you're on the right call, but you're very welcome.
I had to put myself on mute.
Okay, no worries. Put yourself on mute. You're very welcome to stay and hopefully enjoy this. I'm not quite sure whether Mariam's joining our meeting for fun, but it's lovely to have you there. So, what did Bo Easton do? He said, I prowled like a cat around the room, right? Around the theatre. I was pressing all the furniture and the walls and everything else to give myself some control of this weird situation. And I thought, hang on, there's got to be a technique in that we could use in our day-to-day stuff and share. And the technique is owning the room. I'll just call it owning the room. And it's a mindset thing. So before we walk into any difficult conversation, before we walk into maybe we're doing a presentation for work, we're pitching for work, or we have a meeting with a boss or whatever, own the room. So wherever I work in the world now, and I'm in the normal day, in the normal job, I fortunate to speak all over the place. And no matter where I am, I walk in and the room is mine. Well, I'm speaking because it's in there. Yeah, it's not everybody else's. And often I'm working with businesses and big businesses. You walk into 1,000 people. It's the business's room. We're there comfortable, but I need to get myself comfortable. So for that little space of time, I own the room. Now, hopefully that makes sense in terms of just a thought process to put you in a comfortable place for it. So it's a proactive rather than a reactive space. And you can go in there and say, right, I'm actually here. But I'm going to add something else to that, if I may. So it's not just about owning the room as such. Let me ask you a question. Happy for anybody to come back and tell me what they think on this. What do you like? Yeah, and some people I've worked with before. What do you like when, in fact, Martha is brilliant at this, because I did a conference in Hamburg and she was looking after us in Hamburg. It's fantastic. And she did exactly what I'm going to suggest now, which is be a great host. Yeah. The way of succeeding is to, in your mind, be a great host. Why? Because when you are a great host, what do you like at home? If people come to your house for a bite to eat, what do you like? Yeah. Are you typical business sort of, oh, right, we will do this. I've written an agenda for dinner. Yeah. We will start with soup, right, which will be 4.5 minutes. We'll then have it's not like that. But that's what we're like in the business world. But what do we like in the normal human world? Basically, being a great host is really, really important, isn't it? Yeah. Because if we, in our mind, we're a good host, we're going to look after our audience. And if we're looking after our audience, they're more likely to listen to our stories, to listen to what we have to say, and humanly connect with us. Yeah. So always say, be a great host. Because if you're a great host, you can make a difference. Now, hopefully that's kind of resonated and rung a few bells with people. It's a short little session, really, in an hour. It's a shame we haven't got a lot longer to spend. I want, if I may, while we're here, to ask you a couple of questions about what you'd like for next week. So that's coming up shortly. While we're here, though, let me come back to that. And any questions you want to pop on? We've got about 9 minutes. I promise not to run over this time. About 9 minutes or so. Any questions you have about what we talked about so far today? Please either come and talk. Olaf's suddenly gone sideways. I'm not quite sure what's happening there. If you have any questions, either pop them up on the chat, or please feel free to ask me. What's resonating most for you guys? Just unmute and Jamie, let me go to you because I can unmute you and talk from here. What resonated for you?
I enjoyed the grab. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was the grab for me. I was just saying to my brother then we was going to ask what kind of, in terms of when you've been in front of an audience, what's the best kind of grab you've used to bring in the audience?
Imagine. I promise you. Just using the word imagine.
Imagine.
Right? Because I used to grab on you guys, not in a malicious way. You know, the first poll you did about what you thought about storytelling, that was me kind of grabbing and bringing you in. And I've used, in these sessions, I've used polls quite a bit because it works really well. It grabs people, it makes them think, it gets them in the same space as you are. And that's important for that. Because sometimes we might have a lot of time to speak to people, and other times we've only got a matter of a couple of minutes. You know, the elevator speech idea.
Yeah.
And people try the elevator speech and let me tell you about my company. Well, it's a turn-off. Yeah. Whereas if you say to something, how do you solve your problem with such and such, such and such? Or how's this going for you? For all the guys at Manchester City, because your job is selling, yeah, you're really good at that. You say, well, housing, you build up a rapport with your clients and you have a conversation with your clients, and it works really well. Any other quick questions before we do a little bit more? Shall I share my Q&A thoughts while I'm here? I don't know whether I've shared that with you before. When we have meetings, when is the Q&A standard? Someone tell me.
At the end.
At the end. At the end. At the end. Yeah. Who wrote that rule? Picture the scene. You've worked on your, we'll call it a presentation for now. You worked on the presentation. You have a fantastic support story. You've used the virtuous circle and all those things are working really well for you. And you've built it and you've crafted it and you're on your game. You're in the right headspace. And you go in to the executives and you present it. And then what happens at the end? Any questions? And they can ask a question from left field, right field, or whatever. And if the reason we go in to do this presentation in the first place is what they think and do when they walk away, why would we risk that hostage to fortune by saying any questions about anything else? So we lose total control of an audience, and we do it all the time. Because standard, its Q&A, is at the end. Whereas, my thought for the day, penultimate. If you can make the Q&A penultimate, and I always suggest, I've got something else for you. I just did it then, but for me, it's natural doing that. I've got something else for you, which I think you'll find really interesting. Just before we do, though, why don't we just stop and have a little conversation about that? Or are there any questions? And if there's a bit of a stilty bit, no one ever wants to ask the first question, can someone please ask me the second? Just a little bit of levity and brevity comes into it. Miriam said, I like Q&A through the meeting or presentation, keep people involved. Miriam, brilliant. I agree entirely. If you can, if it can be interactive, much harder with big audiences, I found, because there's just too many people. Logistically, it's hard to do. And if you've got a huge audience, Mike, you've worked in front of massive audiences. If you've got a huge audience in front of you, it's very hard to keep their attention with you if you suddenly go off. And if it's a really specific question, there's an art in controlling that so you don't go off in the tangent of that specific question. Otherwise, you lose the room and off they go. So there's some thoughts. Hopefully they've been a bit useful for you today, guys. By all means, pop some more stuff up on the board if you'd like to in the group chat.
John,
yes,
it's Mike.
Mike.
Very quickly. So we've all presented many times. What is the ultimate time to present, and what is the most important part of it? The beginning, the middle, or the end? That's a $1 million question.
Okay, no,
we've got our own views on it.
And happy to answer that. What's the best time? What's the best time to present? Do you mean?
No, sorry.
Length?
The duration, length and duration.
Okay. We are ruled by a bit of software, and people who do conference, I know a lot of people who speak in things, conferences, you are given time slots, and we are ruled by time slots. So I've been known to say and walk on stage, say, guys, they've given me 40 minutes, but I've got 20 minutes, great stuff. Will anybody be upset if we stop for a coffee earlier? All right. And they tend to say, okay, fine. Yeah, I probably will still do 40 minutes, but I've kind of won them over a little bit on that. You were given a slot. How much do you need to give the message across? Mike, the important thing is, what will our audience think and do when they walk away? And that should tell you how much time you need to achieve that. And don't get hung up by it's the template police and the time police, and you must fill an hour. Oh, What's filling? Anybody want to be average by filling an hour, or they want to be brilliant and do it in 10 minutes? So time-wise, the second bit, most important part of any presentation or speech, what they think and do when they walk away. It's not the beginning, the middle, or the end. It's what they walk away thinking and doing, because that's how we judge whether or not we're being successful.
But as ever, less is more with a big audience.
Less is more. Less is more. And with a big audience, you can't do the detail, because you've also got such a disparate audience from all sorts of different parts of an organization or a group that you can't go into one little area. So, because sometimes I work with FDs and they'll stand there and say, right, I'm going to talk about the finances. And half the audience say, oh, what time's lunch? Yeah, and they start drifting away in their minds. We've all been there. We just need to keep them on with us all the time. So it's got to be relevant to the audience. It's got to resonate with the audience, and it's got to have a long-term effect to be really effective on that. On that point, in the last couple of minutes we've got together, can I try another little question, another little poll, if I may? I've been my reason for doing this is straightforward. As you know, it's free, and I love it. I want to share. As I get older, I want to share more, because 40 odd years of experience of doing stuff and standing in front of audiences has given me one or two ideas. Yeah, so I like sharing those, and happy to carry on doing that. It's also nice to meet new people and sort of get to know people from different companies and organizations. Hopefully be able to talk more when all this is over. So if I can ask a couple of questions, that's an easy one. I'm so glad no one said no at the moment, because you're very welcome to. All right. Okay. So thank you for that. That's resounding. Really like that. Okay. Let me ask another question, which is, how often work for you? If anybody says daily, I'll cry in front of you on screen, because that's just too much. But weekly, every couple of weeks, occasionally monthly, you let me know which is more pertinent for you. Okay. Every 2 weeks is shading it, and that works for me really well, because I don't want to impose on anybody else's things. I can do one in a couple of weeks' time, if that works for you guys. And one other question, slightly, and thank you for taking time on this, and I'll share this with you when you've had a chance to vote on that. There's no right and wrongs, and I think you can choose multiples of those. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Whichever ones excite you just gives me a bit of direction and lead. Okay. Another 10 seconds or so on that. And thank you for... There we go. Okay. Share the results for you on that. There we go. So you can see what you said. Interesting. Self-confidence is one of the things that I have a lot of conversation with people about, and it's about how we feel comfortable in any situation. We talked a bit about it today and some techniques about it today, but it's one of those things, if it's the subconscious we're dealing with, we've got to start controlling those by doing habits and keep on increasing those habits and being better at it. We're in a much better place. So thank you for that. I will close those down. Okay. And basically, I'm finished on time. You'll be pleased to hear that. Thank you for being part of it. Please feel free to, I'll drop you a note afterwards. And if you want to share with friends or colleagues, I think this little gathering of people all over the world is absolutely lovely. I wish you a fantastic day. I hope you have, wherever you are in the world, please do keep safe. There's all my contact details on there. If you'd like today, and there is no charge today, and there's no what's the word I'm after? There's no hooks to this. There's no whatever. But if you want to put a little note on LinkedIn, if you've enjoyed it, that would help me immensely. But that's entirely up to you. So once again, thank you. Have a lovely full day if you get up in the States. Have, everybody in Germany's got another hour and they'll be going home. Mind you, they already are. Why did I say that? And if there's anything you want to reach out to on that, thank you for all the people from all the different worlds. Where are we? Mariam from the US, thank you for being part of it. Sarah, lovely. Some great comments on there. So thank you very much indeed. It's been great fun to do. 2 weeks time? Yeah, if you'd like to. Be delighted to do it for you. So have a lovely, safe day. Thank you for taking time. Thanks for taking time with me.
Cheers, John.
Enjoy the rest of it.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you.
Thanks, John.
John, take care.
Thanks, John.